right, welcome everybody to the Bad News Podcast. As always, my co-host
JT Kelley,
and my name is Sam Castillo. This is Bad News with JT and Sam, and our producer
Clifford.
Jimmy Clifford. We have a fun episode. We have an interesting one. We always do. We always try our best to entertain you, make you laugh. This one, we outdid ourselves here. JT Kelley has built a rapport with famed private investigator Ed Opperman, and he gave us the time and luxury of informing us about the Hunter Biden laptop in a detail that I did not know, which is pertinent information as we go into this election year.
Yeah, so I mean, this started because we wanted to talk about Alexander Smirnov, which is a case that Sam knew way more about than me. And I was like, I really don't know this guy's name. I started Googling it, and it tied in with the Hunter Biden thing. Ed Opperman. If you want to talk about any political intrigue, Ed Opperman knows someone that was involved in that political intrigue. I guarantee it. And he is surprisingly accessible. The first time I emailed him was a few years ago, and he responded immediately, just answering technical questions. So I followed him on Instagram, and he followed me back. And he is a guy that's like a hangout, chill dude that likes to goof, that just happens to be an expert in anything interesting and weird in politics. And I mean it. There is not a single topic you could throw at him that he wouldn't say, oh, my friend did XYZ related to that topic. He's like
you can't pick your uncles, but goddamn,
he's a great he would be a killer uncle. He is like the Forrest Gump of political intrigue. Like he is that. Like there is not a single drama in the political realm in the past 15 years that he couldn't riff on, and he was gracious enough to give us about 30 minutes of his time. Unreal political hero for guys like us.
Yeah.
For guys that are sick in the head.
And people who like the show too.
Yeah.
They're not off the hook. They're sickos.
Yeah.
You're also ill.
Yeah. If you're more than one episode into this podcast, you also need mental help. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
That's okay. That's why we talk about this stuff.
Ed's gonna give it to you.
Ed's gonna give it to you. Yeah, dude. Oh, check out the Opperman report. He is a broadcasting legend.
Yeah. And so we have a really cool interview. I did run my theory about what I think Alexander Smirnov is. Just a quick understanding of some of the names that we talk about, because we go right into it in our interview, so you guys fully understand. We're talking about the Hunter Biden laptop, the son of President Joe Biden, and some of the players that are involved in the story. When he says Giuliani, he means former mayor of New York and attorney for Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani. He mentions a Dr. Ablow, who is a unlicensed medical doctor in Massachusetts who had relationships with both Giuliani and Hunter Biden. And then there is a bagman, Rob Costello, who was a worker for Giuliani.
A cast of characters you won't soon forget.
Oh, one last was Lev Parnas. He was a Ukrainian information broker who worked for both Giuliani and John Kerry's son and Hunter Biden. The Alexander Smirnov name that we do talk about is about a former FBI intelligence asset. He was an informant for the FBI for over 10 years and is a U.S. and Israel dual citizen, which is, murky, and is a known informant as well for Russian intelligence, fluent in multiple languages. And this last week, he tried to flee the country, we think, after he was arrested for coming forward. I guess we need to backtrack. He has been an informant to the FBI and gave information to the FBI that he believed that Hunter Biden and current President Joe Biden were committing illegal practices of corruption with a Ukrainian company and oligarchs named Burisma in Ukraine during the Obama administration, and came forward with this information in 2020 going into the election where Joe Biden was elected president. We'll be done in just a sec. Oh, you need this table. Okay. Who's that? We got to go. Oh,
it was Hannibal
It was
Buress.
Carrie. She needs the table.
Okay, cool.
So we got to get out of here, folks. But Alexander Smirnov, you can look into the story, recently said that he was lying for all these years, where he does have proof of corruption of Hunter and Joe Biden. And we have a lot of theories as to why we think he is now claiming to have lied. He was arrested for this, then he was released on bail, then he was arrested again because our government thought he was going to flee to Israel. He's a complicated figure who I think we're going to learn more and more about in the next coming days. Let's just go to the interview, huh?
I can't wait for you guys to listen to this interview. I can't wait for you guys to learn about Alexander Smirnoff and maybe even come to Jesus.
And maybe learn a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, Mr. Opperman, can you hear me all right?
I hear you good, yeah.
Well, good deal. This is JT. I'm here with the rest of the podcast, my friend Jimmy and my friend Sam.
Hi, this is Sam Castillo. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Sure, no problem. So we got Sam Castillo and who else?
And Jimmy Clifford. Hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Jimmy Clifford.
Thank you. Well, again, thanks so much for coming on. We're a few episodes in, and honestly, we're not talking about like the hottest news stories on the block. We're talking about news stories that, you know, Sam, Jimmy, and I all follow pretty closely. And when Sam first started talking about Alexander Smirnoff, I had to Google that. And the only reason I'm even slightly familiar with Alexander Smirnoff or anything related is all the episodes that you've done on Hunter Biden's podcast. I mean, Hunter Biden's laptop.
Okay, good. Real quick then, how does Smirnoff connect to the laptop?
The story about Biden's relationship with Hunter's business dealings. Because specifically what I remember from the laptop is that he had those text messages that says, I get my dad, I have direct line to the president or the vice president at the time. I have direct line to my father. And then with the Alexander Smirnoff story, he's releasing similar information as far as, Hunter Biden's dad's relationship with his business dealings, right?
Right.
Well, let me ask a quick question. Then which show, who was the guest on the show that mentioned Smirnoff?
Oh, I don't think you've mentioned Smirnoff. That's just the only thing I know about Hunter Biden's laptop is from your episodes.
Oh, yeah, I got some good stuff on the laptop, yeah.
Perfect. Well, Ed, thanks so much for jumping on. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And when I first learned about the Alexander Smirnoff story, for me, I couldn't tell the difference between Alexander Smirnoff in the news and the Alexander Smirnoff that's a famous figure skater. I was really hoping they were the same guy. They were not. But, essentially what it seems like from the summaries I've seen online and from the conversations I've had with Sam is that this Alexander Smirnoff guy, his whole thing is kind of corroborating what was found out in Hunter Biden's laptop as far as his father colluding with foreign powers and foreign businessmen. And that's really why we wanted to have you on, was ideally be able to give us some context as to this whole story, this whole crazy news cycle.
The laptop story specifically, not necessarily Smirnoff, but just if you could help us and our listeners really understand what the Hunter Biden laptop story is, especially since we're now in an election year where it's going to come back up again.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. I am definitely not an expert on Smirnoff. Maybe Smirnoff vodka, okay? I've drank a lot of that over the years. But
Sure.
I didn't even know there was a figure skater, okay? So my name's Ed Opperman. I'm a private investigator. I host a radio show, interview show 5 nights a week on AM/FM radio. You can find it as a podcast. It's called The Opperman Report. But I'm also a private investigator for my whole life, since I was like 20 years old. And one of the things I do is a lot of opposition research and that type of thing. I'm brokering lawsuits. I was the PI in the lawsuit against Trump and Epstein. I have 2 clients right now testifying against Trump in New York in March in the Stormy Daniels case. Plus a friend of mine testifying over there as well. Now, I can tell you what I know about the laptop, okay, and my involvement in the laptop. And it's a pretty funny story.
Okay.
I heard this story about a woman who was 19 years old named Samantha Spiegel, and she got involved with John Mark Carr, the guy who confessed to killing John Benet Ramsey. While I'm interviewing her, at the end of the interview, she blurts out this story. And I had a relationship with Dr. Keith Abloh, the Fox News commentator. Mm-hmm. And he got me into an S&M relationship. And he abused me. And I'm like, what the hell? I says, have you ever... I says, wait a minute. Have you ever said this to anybody else before? Like in public on the radio? She goes, no, this is the first time. Okay, so we bleep that out because I don't want to get sued by Fox and Keith Abloh, right? Uh-huh. But I contact my attorney, Keith Davidson, one of my attorneys, and he's the one testifying in the Stormy Daniels case on March 25th. And I says, hey, man, we got this case against Keith Abloh. This poor girl was being abused by John Mark Carr from the John Benet Ramsey story. And here she is. She goes to Keith Abloh for help, and he gets her involved in this S&M abusive relationship, right? So he wanted to do it right away. He says, yeah, let's do it. I'll fly her out here right now. Let's do this case. But then he got mixed up in the whole Stormy Daniels thing, and he got too distracted. He couldn't. She chickened out at first is what happened. And then when she came back and she was ready to do it, he was all mixed up in that Stormy Daniels thing right at the very beginning when it was 24/7 news. And he was getting sued by Avenatti and all that crap. So she comes back. She wants to do the case, but he didn't want to take the case. He says, man, I'm out. Got too much on my plate. We find a couple of the lawyers. By the way, we're Epstein lawyers to go in there and take care of that case. So I put together a folder and a report on Dr. Keith Abloh and all his abuse of my client. That folder was used to get his license pulled. And whenever I say pulled, people think that I just looked up his license. No, we got his license revoked, suspended, from the state of Massachusetts. Now, what people don't know is that Hunter Biden went to live with Dr. Keith Abloh for 3 months.
When?
Did you not? Yeah, oh, yeah, see that? You didn't know that, right?
So I actually heard this on your podcast, and it's coming back to me now, but I don't want to spill the story here. So I am remembering this, but only from you.
So, Ms. Opperman,
right.
It's
out there.
This is Sam again. Just to understand the timeline. So, whenever you guys were looking, the Stormy Daniels case was what? That was like late 2017. That's whenever Mrs. Spiegel was approaching you guys about, taking this to trial?
Well, originally Spiegel was even way before that. Okay. I would have to go. She was like 2008 or 2000. No, I started the show in 2013. Wait a minute. Because I interviewed her. So it would have been about 2014, 2015 with Spiegel. She chickened out back and forth. And then around Stormy Daniels was 2016. When we were going to Stormy Daniels. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So, and then Hunter Biden's living with Abloh. Do you know about what time?
Off the top of my head, no. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I'm mixed up in a lot of stuff.
Of course.
I'm involved in a lot of stuff. I'm writing. If you're watching Netflix, that thing right now with Danny Castellero and the Octopus Murders, there's a series that just came out on Netflix. My friend is Bill Hamilton, who is the center of that story. And I got 3 hours exclusive with him. He's never done an interview in 45 years. And the Netflix documentary really went out of their way to smear this guy. And I'm very, very upset about this. It just came out the past couple of days. And I've been working on that for the past few days. Now, so the timeline, Hunter Biden went to live with Keith Abloh. I don't remember quite when. But he left behind a laptop. And he left behind diaries and all this material. So, they call this the second laptop, okay? And the first laptop supposedly wound up at this John Mark Isaacs computer repair place. This blind fellow down there in Maryland who runs this computer repair place. He's moved to Colorado since. Now, back when that whole thing with the laptop came up with John Mark Isaacs, I get a call from a friend of mine who's a very aggressive reporter, a very aggressive tabloid reporter. And he goes, Ed, me and some of my friends of mine, we barged our way in there and we got a taped interview with John Mark Isaacs, okay? And he was doing fine until we started asking about the chain of custody of the laptop. And he keeps bringing up Robert Costello. Now, Robert Costello is Rudy Giuliani's representative. Okay? They have another word for this called bagman, okay?
Okay.
And, okay. But he's a longtime associate of Rudy Giuliani. And I knew right away he was a point man in this whole laptop deal. Because what happened was, okay, when Hunter Biden left Keith Abloh's place and he left behind all his material, Keith Abloh's brother shows up at a book signing party, a book launch party in New York for Bradley Birkenfeld. Bradley Birkenfeld is this, he got like $300 million whistleblower settlement because he used to work for these Swiss bank accounts. He had to do some time. He had his own problem there. But he had a book launch party in New York. Now, who's at this party? Dr. Keith Ablow's brother, Bo Dietl, Bernie Kerik, former CIA John Kirkawa.
He worked with
Costello, of
Kiriakou.
course. Go ahead. Sorry?
I'm sorry, this is the guy who worked with Kiriakou.
Right. Kiriakou was a former CIA, and he was at this party, too.
Oh, really?
Oh, a real who's of guys we read about.
Yeah. Kiriakou, the story with him was, what came out in public with him is he says that they offered him a pardon to sell him a pardon for $2 million. Okay? So I had him on the show too. Okay, let me go back a little bit because this is really funny. At this party, Ablow's brother says, "Hey man, we got Hunter Biden's laptop and we want to monetize this laptop." So they says, "Well, how much you want for the laptop?" He goes, "We want $2 to $3 million." Okay, which by the way, $2 to $3 million is the same figure that they were selling pardons for. And that's what Kiriakou went public on that thing, saying, "Hey, they wanted to sell me a pardon for $2 million." And he talks about going through Robert Costello. Okay, you guys following us? It's making sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So Kiriakou, he's a whistleblower who broke the lid on the whole waterboarding scandal. These guys, Costello and the powers that be, tried to charge him $2 million for a pardon for coming forward with that classified information. Kiriakou served time in prison. He's out now, and now that he's out of prison, he's at the party with Keith Ablow's brother at a book release for Berkowitz, who is a whistleblower for Swiss bank accounts.
Birkenfeld. Berkowitz is the son of Sam. This is Birkenfeld. He's not as bad.
I'm sorry. Birkenfeld.
Interesting crossover for a sec, though.
Yeah, I don't know what Birkenfeld does in his personal life. Okay, but I can't get into that.
So we're at the
but the deal
Birkenfeld
is-
release party, and Ablow's brother is there, and the bag man for Giuliani, Costello, is there.
Right. So, Kiriakou tells a story on my show. See, because I invite all these guys on the show. I don't say in advance, "Hey, man, I want you to come on and tell me about this bribery at this party." With Birkenfeld, he wrote this book called Lucifer's Banker. So I contact him. I said, "Mr. Birkenfeld, that's the greatest book I've ever read in my life. Would you like to come on the show?" So, and then when he gets on the show, I said, "Hey, what about that laptop story at this book?" And so he tells the whole story, without realizing, he's because he denies all this, but I got him on tape. Okay.
So now they're trying to sell the primary laptop for about $2 to $3 million because it contains damning information about Hunter, and there's a secondary laptop that's at Ablow's house.
There's many laptops. There's many. And we're going to get into one that was on a plane with Rudy Giuliani and Lev Parnas and Sean Hannity. Okay?
Can I ask one question real fast?
Go ahead.
So Biden, of course, being the son of a prominent vice president who's a Democrat, how is it that Costello, who's a bag man for a Republican, that's his full-time job is to just scrounge up dirt about the opposing party? Or how is he finding all of these laptops? How is Giuliani getting laptops on planes? These are not political allies.
Oh, because what happened, according to Lev Parnas, you know who Lev Parnas is?
I don't.
No, sir.
Okay, Lev Parnas was former partners with Giuliani, okay? And he's the one who arranged the perfect phone call between Trump and Zelensky. He was at that dinner table and arranged that phone call. Lev Parnas, he went to prison for all this, man, but he's out now, and he's in the middle, okay? He's not with the Democrats. He's not with the Republicans. He's got all this font of information, this wealth of information, and really, no one wants to put him on because he doesn't fit in with Fox News. He doesn't fit in with CNN. I tell him, dude, you got nowhere to go but me. Okay, So he comes. So we become friends off the air.
He's a man without a country.
Okay, one thing to understand, okay, about this whole thing with Ukraine and Hunter Biden and Burisma and all this crap. Lev Parnas says that it was Rudy Giuliani's guy in Ukraine, the guy who arranges Rudy Giuliani's speaking engagements in Ukraine, who got Hunter that job over at Burisma. Okay? there's levels to this that go beyond party politics, where people are willing to do deals with the enemy, the political enemy, for their own personal gain, and that goes on all the time. And in this case, it's all over the place. Everybody in this is interested in money only, myself included. I mean, we're all just doing this for money.
Wasn't there other politicians' sons along with Hunter Biden in the same business dealings, or am I remembering that incorrectly? I feel like it was him and then someone else's son, right?
But gee whiz, who could the other guy be? I don't know. John Kerry's son? Could it have been John Kerry's son who was partners with Hunter Biden?
I knew it was someone.
You want to laugh, man? Go dig up the Devin Archer testimony before Congress. Okay, he was another Hunter Biden partner.
Weren't we reading that this morning?
We
Sam?
were actually reading. We actually have screenshots of the House or the Oversight Committee's website where they were quoting a testimony from Archer this morning, and we're gonna
got to read the whole thing, man, and you got to make sure you're getting the unedited versions. The Republicans put out an edited version. You got to get the unedited version, but it's available. Okay.
What do the Republicans edit out?
Well, the first thing they edited out. Okay, I never read the edited version, but I read the unedited. Devin Archer, when he first starts testifying, the first thing he says is, "Yeah, we did great work, and John Kerry's son was, they don't want to hear about John Kerry's son. No, he doesn't exist. No, go out. I can't hear you. Forget John Kerry's son. When he was doing the exact same thing, and he still is." Hunter and John Kerry's son, I don't even remember John Kerry's name, but the guy's John Kerry's son, they were running around all around the world with their hand out getting payoffs from everybody. Devin Archer also testifies that this whole big story about how Joe Biden put the squeeze on the prosecutor in Ukraine because he was investigating Burisma and he put the squeeze on him, got him fired. No way, man. Burisma liked that guy. He was already in their pocket. They wanted that guy. So this whole story about that doesn't fit at all. That's just for TV because I got a nice news clip about Biden bragging about it.
If you could explain to our listeners really what the Burisma deal is, that now that we know that Lev Parnas was kind of the guy, the middleman who helped broker the deal. He was the guy who helped Giuliani with his speaking engagements and when he would go to Ukraine, and he was the guy who connected Hunter Biden to that oligarch Mikhail and Burisma. Could you explain to our audience what the actual Burisma deal was?
Basically, Burisma, well, I can't even pronounce it, but that company in Ukraine, it's an energy company, an oil and gas company, hired Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and John Kerry's son for political lobbyists.
Correct.
And they said when we had a problem, we would go to Hunter Biden. Well, which lobbying firm do we use in Washington? And that's standard business, man. Unless you want to get rid of capitalism, that's just how it works. I see no problem. Oh, yeah, listen, this whole bunch is corrupt. They should all be in prison. But by the way, Lev Parnas isn't the guy. Lev Parnas knows the guy who got Hunter the job at Burisma.
I see.
And he was involved in the Zelensky call, and he was also involved in that whole thing. Remember that woman who was the ambassador over there, and they were following her around, and it was really it looked like they were going to whack her. He was involved in digging up dirt in Ukraine and all that kind of stuff. That's Lev Parnas.
Right.
But he was very close partners with Giuliani. He's got all the dirt on Giuliani. Real quick back to the because it's important, the Keith Abloh aspect of all this.
Right.
Because you're at this book signing. There's dirt in Keith Abloh's house, in his safe, worth $2 million minimum. Right? He wants 2 to 3. So now you got. Is there anything on that laptop that's worth $3 million that we've seen in public? No, not really, right? Mm-hmm. But Abloh's seen it, and he thinks that there is. Okay, Abloh's the one, by the way, too. You see that thing recently about the sawdust on that table that looks like lines of coke?
Yeah.
That's Abloh. That's his table. That's his picture that he mailed to Hunter Biden. Okay?
He's in the mix of it all.
Oh, Abloh's a sick guy, man. Real quick, I'll tell you, this is public, man. And I got the documents to prove it. Abloh went to my client. They had a fight over the phone. Okay, she was in San Francisco. He was in Massachusetts. They had an argument over the phone in the middle of the night. I can't blame him because she was a very difficult woman, Spiegel. We've had worse arguments, but he calls up and has her committed, 5150. He has her put in a mental institution. When she gets out, they go back into their sexual relationship. They go back into their relationship. And I have a text message where he's saying he wants to slap her in the vagina with a knife after he's just had her put in a mental institution. This is serious stuff. Man. He lost his license. He was called an imminent threat to the public is why he lost his license. And he's got in his safe this Hunter Biden laptop, right? And he wants $2 million for it. So Rudy and his team there, they dig up who were the guys? It was Bo Dietl and Birkenfeld. You know who Bo Dietl is, right?
Yes.
The famous New York City private investigator, One Tough Cop. If you watch that movie with Harvey Keitel called Bad Lieutenant,
I've not
that's
seen
Bo
that
Dietl.
movie.
Oh, you got to watch that movie. That's a great movie. Okay. And that's the story of Bo Dietl. Okay. And me and Bo Dietl have been friends since the 80s. I know all these guys back in the 80s in New York.
Oh, wow.
Now, Bo Dietl and Birkenfeld go to the Dr. Keith Abloh's house in Massachusetts. They knock on the door. Hey, how are you? We want to negotiate about this laptop. Negotiations fall through. They leave. They're empty-handed. But wouldn't you know, the next day, there's a knock at the door. Open up. DEA. Search warrant. We're coming in. Somehow this crew gets to a judge and gets to a DEA. We're all feds. These are all feds just as bad as the DOJ working for the Bidens, right? And they go in there and they snatch up the laptop and all other kind of stuff. No charges ever, right? And Hunter Biden's able to go through his attorneys and get that laptop back, okay? But not, but they copied everything on there, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty interesting story that Bo and Birkenfeld were able to get to a judge, a federal judge, DEA squad, and go in there and raid this house, man. Get this laptop.
During that
so
raid,
that's one of the laptops.
And during that raid, they get that one laptop from Ablow. Did they find actual drugs or weapons in that house?
Yeah. They were also raiding pharmacies because he was giving his these female clients ketamine, and he had sexual relationships with all his clients and stuff like that. It's very bizarre. That in itself.
Psychiatrist.
Which he's lost his medical license now in Massachusetts.
Yeah, but you want to know what? He hasn't slowed down a bit. If you go to his website, he's still offering therapy as an unlicensed therapist.
Oh, wow.
He's selling books, too.
I know.
So that was the first laptop. It gets copied by the feds. It gets back into Hunter's hands. What's the story on the second laptop? The one that is in the hands of a blind repairman at this
the
time?
Mac Shop was the name of the computer store.
Right. See, that's the thing. We don't know which one is first, which one is second, which one's third. No one knows that. No one can tell you. Well, there are the guys involved with, like Steve Bannon and that fellow Versh Barra who worked for. You know the story about that guy?
I don't know Versh Barrow.
I don't actually either.
Oh, this is the guy. He was working for he did damn. He's a drug dealer from Staten Island who lives at his mother's house.
Great
this
story.
Indian guy. He went to work for Steve Bannon when Steve Bannon had a copy of one of the laptops, and he would throw laptop watching parties. Okay, to go through the laptop. Then he went to work for Matt Gaetz to do damage control in Matt Gaetz's situation here, which, by the way, too, ties into all this, too, as well, okay? Because we have opposition research on Matt Gaetz. Avish Barra then went to work for George Santos. He was George Santos' dirty tricks guys. But you know that WhatsApp message where Hunter Biden is talking about, I got my father right here and, blah, 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 all that
I know
stuff?
exactly what message
The one
you're
where he's
talking
calling
about.
him the brand.
Right, the WhatsApp message.
Yes.
That's Vish Barra is the guy who hacked into Hunter Biden's WhatsApp and got that message.
How do you spell that last name again? Barrow? Do you know?
Barra. Vish, V-I-C-H. Let me see if I can find it on my Twitter. He's a real character.
Okay, I
They
think
all
we
are,
found
right?
him.
You found him? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now, so no one knows what's the deal with this laptop at the John Mark Isaacs, this character. And by the way, his name goes. He has different names too. Sometimes it's Mac Isaac. Mac Isaac. He's a really shady character.
I noticed that too, but I wasn't sure if that was just bad reporting or if something shady's going on in the way that they talk about it.
He's an interesting guy. He definitely knows who I am because I was on this little radio station in Florida, and the morning host would go on every day. He would listen to my show at night, and he would go on in the morning ranting and raving. He was so upset that I was on the same station with him. He started talking about how he was bringing a gun into the station. And every night on this station, there's a card-carrying communist on this station. Every night. So this guy, John Mac Isaacs, writes a book, and somehow he winds up on this obscure interview with this morning host on the station. So they all, he had to use my name to get the interview. So there's another laptop, okay? See, because according to Lev Parnas, who's tuned into all this stuff, he knows all the dirt, he knows everybody. He just came out with a book just recently. And he knows all about that coup in Venezuela, too. There was another, see, because according to Lev Parnas, the Russian FSB was going to Hunter Biden and telling him, look, man, we got hookers, we got blow, we got drugs over in Kazakhstan. We're going to fly over there and hook you up. You can party all you want with these free hookers. And they were filming all this secretly. And that's all this dirt and these photos and these videos you see on these laptops.
It's from a Kazakhstani setup.
Yes, right. Because the Russian former KGB is deeply involved in all this. Mm-hmm. Lev Parnas, Sean Hannity, and Rudy Giuliani were scheduled to go to Vienna to pick up a package. He uses the word package, but what he's talking about is another dump of laptop material to put on Hunter Biden's laptop. They're on the turn. Hannity is on his way there because he's working on a story. Parnas is on there because he's Rudy Giuliani's partner, buddy. Right before the flight, Rudy Giuliani says, sorry, guys, I can't make it. Can't make the trip. Missed my flight, missed my cab, whatever. FBI shows up on the plane. They arrest Lev Parnas.
What?
That's how Lev Parnas... Yes! So Rudy Giuliani got tipped off in advance, heard the DOJ was... the FBI was coming on there to arrest, probably him too, and he takes off and leaves Lev Parnas holding the bag. He gets busted for his own crimes and situations there. At one point, the Hunter Biden laptop, and it's a complication of all these different laptops and different information come from all places. But at one point, there's a version of this laptop in Rudy Giuliani's apartment in New York City. Patrick Berge. I've had him on a guest on my show many times too. He's a nice guy, but he was in with all these guys. He knew Giuliani. He was in with all these characters and knows everybody. He testified at the January 6th hearings and commission hearings. And Rudy Giuliani invites him to his house. Allegedly, the forward story is to check out and authenticate the laptop. But what they really wanted him to do was to get in there and break passwords that were in the laptop, in the encrypted passwords and stuff like that, and go in there and break these passwords. He was unwilling to do certain things that were gone too far. He wouldn't do it. So he leaves. A couple of days later, remember when Rudy Giuliani's apartment gets raided? They take all his phones, they take his computers, they take his electronics. Mm-hmm. They leave behind the Hunter Biden laptop. They don't touch it.
And who's taking everything? Was it the Secret Service? Was it the police? Was it the FBI?
I'm pretty sure that was SDNY, the feds in New York.
Uh-huh. But they left
that
the
went
laptop.
In. They wouldn't touch it. They left that one behind. So the laptop is like, I don't know, it's like the holy grail at this point,
It was the biggest thing about last election cycle. It was huge news, nonstop, 24/7. And I remember the thing that killed me was like I saw, the WhatsApp messages and things like that. But the only thing I would see in the news was like, Biden's messages to his son during rehab. And they were trying to make that as if that was the big deal from the laptop. And anyone that's like, following the story is like, no, that is not the story from the laptop.
There's photos of him drinking with the daughters of President Obama. There's the photos of him, drinking with different underage girls in pools, him smoking crack. And then, of course, there's these business dealings, these ones that show signs of corruption. There's so much on just that one laptop, and there's multiple laptops that these other people in his life, like Ablau, possess, that Costello is getting a hold of. This is a whole separate world that I don't think myself and a lot of people know.
They're trading them like Pokemon cards.
Yeah. Do you want to hear something funny? In this case against Stormy Daniels, there was a book that came out called The Fixers, the porn stars and the lawyers and the crooked this and that who got Trump elected, right? And I was interviewed for that book, and so were two of my clients, Gina Rodriguez and Keith Davidson. And when there was right before they were going to indict Trump on this, Robert Costello comes forward and he says, I have information about Cohen that makes him an unreliable witness. I demand to be interviewed by this grand jury. So he comes out after the grand jury and he's holding up the book, the Fixers, right? And by coincidence, at the same night, I was replaying that show, the interview with the Fixers, as he's holding up the book live on TV, talking about all my friends, that are testifying against Trump. So, but the thing is, which laptop is which, man? There's a lot of laptop information floating around out there, and if you notice how it comes out in dribs and drabs, it's because they're breaking into different passwords and they're getting more information, or they're hacking into WhatsApp and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Is there something that, we've, like I mentioned a second ago, there's the photos of like sex acts, drug use, the Burisma story. Is there anything that or someone has told you that they've seen on any of the laptops that you think is interesting or valuable information that the public might not know already?
There has to be information that is being held back for blackmail purposes or bribery purposes.
Of course.
Because Abloh says, Abloh looked at this and he felt it was worth $3 million. Okay.
Is there anything you know that we might not know or the public might not know that you can share with us?
No, there's not. Well, yeah, the public doesn't know any of this stuff, but you can really, if you really dig around, you can find a lot of it. But as far as is there some kind of child porn on there? I've asked everybody. Bergie says he never saw anything, but he saw a lot of bad stuff. With Rudy and Carrick, back when the laptop first came out, and they were saying that there was child porn on there, I messaged Rudy. I messaged both of them. I tagged both of them on Twitter. And I says, hey, listen, man, if you guys saw child porn on that laptop and you're passing it around, you're circulating child pornography. Correct. You guys are going to be going to jail.
Yeah.
Right.
Rudy blocks me. Again, I've known Rudy since New York in the 80s. Rudy blocks me. And they later on that day, they say, we just turned this over to New York State Police. All more information. So, and no one's come out with any child porn on there. But I was involved in another case once, involving Wienergate, right?
Anthony Weiner, right?
Yes, Anthony Weiner. My involvement with that was Gina Rodriguez, the same woman who set up the whole Stormy Daniels deal, was my agent, and she was Stormy Daniels' agent, and she was the agent for that first woman, Maria, who was a Las Vegas blackjack dealer. I forget if she was blackjack or poker. The press always gets it wrong. Whatever they say, it's the other. Mm-hmm. Okay? So Gina represented her, then she represented Sydney Leathers. So I did the cell phone forensics on that first phone with the pictures of Maria, with Wienergate. Later on, when all this thing was just going on and on and on, I was sent a phone by a woman who said that she had a teenage daughter who sent nude pics to Wiener. Now, I can't open up that phone. Once I'm told there's child porn on there, I can't touch that phone. Mm-hmm. So the minute I got it, I sent it over to the cops in Virginia, and it just disappeared.
You had done the cell phone recovery, sent it off to the police, and then they lost the evidence?
No, I got it, because what happens is, if you're doing cell phone forensics and or computer forensics, and you discover child porn or something that drastically illegal on the device, you have to immediately shut it down and take it to the police station, okay? So with that phone, I was told by the mother that it was on there. So I said, okay, once I'm not opening up this box. Okay, I'm sending this over to Virginia, back to the cops in Virginia. They can open it up, and that story just died. Nothing's come out of that. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, for our purposes, it seems like
Yeah.
the Hunter Biden laptop really corroborates the story that this guy Alexander Smirnov is telling. But right now, Alexander Smirnov is in jail because they're calling him a liar. Is that right, Sam?
Well, just to really fully explain what we know about Alexander Smirnov, he is an FBI informant. He's been an informant of the FBI for over 10 years. And in 2020, he corroborated a lot of the details of the Hunter Biden Burisma deal and came forward as an informant to validate them. And that's what began the inquiries by Senator Chuck Grassley into the story. And when now that Hunter Biden is being tried again for the drug and gun charges, and the Republican Party's trying to start an impeachment process on Joe Biden, they were looking towards this informant who's been working with Republicans in the House and Senate for 4 years now to kind of, come take the stand and really validate what's on that laptop, as a way to begin impeaching Joe Biden and charge Hunter. But this week, Alexander Smirnov said, actually, I lied. Actually, I've been lying for years. Turns out all the times that I have been able to say that I have testimonies from people, that I have emails, that I have texts that you guys don't have, that I have proof that all this corruption took place. Turns out I don't have it, and even though I've been an FBI informant and I'm a dual citizen of Israel and I speak all these languages and I'm a Russian intelligence asset as well, turns out I actually don't know what I'm talking about anymore. And this would mean that the impeachment process for Biden is moot and is not valid, and that Hunter Biden should be tried only for the guns and the drugs and nothing else. And it turns out these guys are pretty much innocent. And it looks like he's going to go away for a long time. He's taking the fall. It appears to the outside either he did lie to destabilize our election process as a Russian-Israeli asset, or he was telling the truth and that he can corroborate and validate the corruptions, and the Democrats have something on him, so they're going to weaken the Republican arguments as to how to harm both the Bidens.
Right. JT was saying that you guys have this theory that the Democrats are blackmailing Smirnov.
It's it's either that or he's a Russian asset.
No.
Those are our theories. What do you think when I tell you that idea? What are your thoughts?
It's definitely possible because even Devin Archer, he was going to prison like the day after his testimony. So it seems that the Bidens are no slouches. Okay, they are using the Justice Department to help themselves here, as far as their corruption goes and stuff like that. And I'm sure they're using bribery as well. And if they have blackmail there too as well, I'm hesitant reaching out to them with information I have. And at one point, I had more information about the Hunter Biden story than Hunter Biden knew. I also know for a fact that I don't know how public it is, but one of the guys I mentioned more recently sent over an affidavit to the Department of Justice, and they never got back to him. But Hunter Biden's lawyer did and contacted him and said, hey, we'll give you $10,000 for that affidavit. So, but I know also, too, that there's other opposition research information, which you can also call blackmail, but opposition research information that they turned down that's involved in this case. So, could it be that, are there deals behind the scenes and all this? I'm 100% sure there are. Okay, negotiations and deals and payoffs and all kind of stuff like that. Threats of prosecution will drop charges. Because when they drop charges, that doesn't make the press. This story just goes away. People forget all about it. Are there people on the FBI payroll as informants that are just giving them crap and giving them nonsense and BS? That goes on all over the place. That happened with Lawrence Ray. Everyone talks about Lawrence Ray. Bernie Kerrick's best man who got involved in that Sarah Lawrence prostitution case. He went to go live in the dorm in Sarah Lawrence College with his daughter, and he was pimping out his daughter's roommates. You know that story?
Yeah.
He was an FBI informant. He was involved in some kind of intelligence operation, too. And he was giving garbage over to the FBI and getting paid for it. And finally they said, hey, this is all dirt. This is all garbage. Well, we're not paying this guy anymore. So as far as that goes, that happens a lot. People are giving BS information that are informants, and they don't get in trouble for it.
Right. Well, yeah, there is a possibility that he was lying, and there is a possibility that he wasn't. I guess those are just the running theories I had as to the logic as to why he might have been lying, or he was telling the truth and now he's pretending to have lied. We have to wrap up soon. Was there anything else that you think the laptops are going to anything that you think might happen as we get closer to November this year with these laptops that you've like looked into or thought about that you think that people might want to know that they might not know already or hasn't really been publicized?
Well, it's not just the laptop; it's the WhatsApp hacking too. It seems like we're at a level in politics in the United States here where we're just, man, this idea of opposition research and spying on the opposition has just gone so far. And it's really right under the surface. You could just scratch just a little bit, and the whole story's right there. I don't think we've ever had this kind of skullduggery going on in American politics before. Is something? There has to be more in this laptop area of information, computer data that they have, because Keith Abloh wanted 2 to 3 million.
Right.
And I don't see anything on that Hunter Biden laptop so far that's worth 2 to 3 million. And if there's business dealings on there, if they've hacked into bank accounts and foreign transfers and stuff like that, and they of $100 million or a $10 million or a $20 million deal, I think their first motivation would be, hey, let's get a piece of that money, rather than, hey, let's influence the election. But who knows?
That would be mine too.
Yeah.
That would be. If I found anything on Hunter Biden's laptop, the first thing I would do is contact you to see who I could make some money on.
But it's so true, yeah, and I'm available. Opperman Investigations at
If any of our
gmail.com.
listeners find any intel or any hot information, don't post it on Twitter. Go directly to the man himself, Ed Opperman of the Opperman Report. He'll line you up with some handlers and change your life.
You know, I hate to joke around, but it really is true. One of the big things we do is sexual battery on children. It's a big cases that we work. That's one of our specialties. You know, if you got a school, if you were molested at a school or a church or something like that, those are our specialty, those kind of cases, to get settlements on those kind of cases. So we're definitely the people who go for that. And this kind of opposition research too, you know, in political opposition research. If you have something like that, shoot me an email at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
And Ed, we do have kind of an unrelated question, just something Sam and I spend a lot of time talking about. We both live in Austin, Texas, where there's this really famous case of an FBI agent walking into Container Bar here and then shooting himself in the head. Are you familiar with this at all?
No, I'm not, but it sounds very interesting.
It is one of the most fascinating cases of all time. This guy was a Wall Street banker turned FBI informant. He worked...
Agent. Full agent.
Not informant, sorry, yeah. And he was a DC agent too. He was the head of some.
He was in charge. He was part of the division of the FBI that looked into domestic financial crimes and was investigating the Clinton Foundation in 2014 and 2015, before the 2016 campaign really began.
Mm-hmm. So one night he's out with his coworkers in downtown Austin, Texas, and then he shoots himself in the head on the dance floor. The FBI and the police come. There's no police affidavit of the incident. They take people's cell phones. It's just this very shady incident.
Multiple testimonies from people who were in the bar who said the police took their phones and scrubbed all the photos and videos off of their phones.
Yeah. What our goal with this podcast is to raise enough money to hire a private investigator to dig into this case. How much do you think that would cost to get a good PI to dig into this case, like ballpark?
Oh, boy. It's hard to say. That's a very interesting story. And it's not all that uncommon for the cops at the scene, when there's a bunch of witnesses, say, get out of here. Okay. You know, I forget the guy's last name, and it's really breaking my heart, but there was a guy, this redheaded fellow in Vegas, who got shot at a Costco by these cops. Eric was his first name. I became really good friends with his dad. I forget the last name at the moment. And they destroyed the Costco video footage, you know, and they took people's phones. Witnesses were terrified, you know. about that story. So that is, yeah, that kind of stuff happens, and the Clintons have that kind of juice to do that kind of thing still to this day. Talk about Clintons and the Clinton Foundation. You probably don't even know about this. I have had for years exclusively the 24-page letter where Jeffrey Epstein's attorney, Jerry Lefcourt, who was Abby Hoffman's attorney at one point, but Jerry Lefcourt wrote a 24-page letter during the sentencing negotiations for Jeffrey Epstein, where he talks about how Epstein was such a nice guy, charitable guy, that he helped create the Clinton Foundation. And I got that 24-page letter. It's been on my member section, and it's been in my Patreon right now. And when Epstein died, I think when things really started going crazy, either when he got arrested or when he died, but all these places were going to my website to buy that document. Business Insider. Yeah, they were buying that. So anywhere you saw it after that, it was bought from me. I got that letter.
Opperman's Patreon and website is filled with source documents. It is the absolute best resource you can have for anything that makes your brain tick. It is so good.
I first found out about you because a podcast I listened to by a journalist named Whitney Webb was praising your work. I don't know if you've ever heard of her at all.
Who?
Whitney Webb. She has she's a journalist who lives in Chile and was looking into the Epstein financials.
Whitney Webb was praising me?
Yeah, she was praising your work.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, yeah, Whitney Webb showed up around 2016, and she somehow become an expert on everything. But I do have a lot of documents, first-hand documents. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, this is pretty good. Because I've been working on Epstein since 2013. I did the first radio show about Epstein in 2013, and then I was later on hired to work on some cases with that. I couldn't even find a guest. Nobody knew who Epstein was back in 2013. No one knew that name. But remember that case where those Charlie Hebdo, the cartoonist, and those guys went in there and shot up the joint?
Yeah, yes. Je suis Charlie.
Je suis Charlie, yeah.
Right. Okay. Right before that happened, there was suddenly all these news stories in the British tabloids about the Clintons being involved in Epstein. And that got wiped off the cover of the news because of that shooting.
Really?
And here you had these guys. If you go and look into that shooting, you had these guys who had military training. These guys when they were escaping the scene, they were doing like tactical retreat. So they go in there and they shoot this guy up. They come out, their getaway car's gone. Okay. This is such a crazy story. They come out, their getaway car's gone. So they're retreating down the street. They wind up in a warehouse. I think it was like a magazine warehouse or something like that. And reporters called up and they pick up the phone. And they say, we were paid $20,000 to do this. Okay? Now, that's something the Clintons could pull off. Okay, people talk about these big false flag operations and stuff like that, and half of it's crazy. But to something like that, to hire 4 guys, mercenaries, ex-military, to go in and shoot up a joint and take off, and then you set them up by their getaway driver takes off, that's something definitely the Clintons could pull off to get their name off the news, and it worked.
Wow. And that was 2016. That was the summer of, maybe it might have been before that. Yeah, that is, and that was leading up to the Clinton Foundation, and Hillary's run for president. We're running out. We are just about out of time, but we really appreciate you giving us time on your Saturday.
Really, really.
No, thank you guys. I enjoyed this. I really did enjoy this. I'm having a bad day. I'm all still so upset about this whole Netflix thing with the Danny Casolaro story. If you listened to my show last night, I was just ranting and raving like a lunatic. It's just these Netflix, man, these characters over at Netflix are just rewriting history like one week after another with all their documentaries, man. It's just breaking my heart.
Yeah, honestly, if we can't get you a Netflix deal, I'm canceling my subscription there.
I have so many questions another time about the Netflix dirty money series about Epstein. But in the meantime, our listeners will definitely check out, Ed's episode where he does talk to Danny Castellero about his side of the story about the Octopus Killings documentary series.
And the casts that he's had on, you've had about 10 years of Opperman Report. You have the craziest guest you could ever imagine. If you even enjoy the show a little bit, dig into Ed Opperman. He has a guest that will blow you away. I guarantee it.
And, of course, your website.
By the way,
Patreon.
I never interviewed Danny Castellero. Danny Castellero died in a staged suicide. The guy I got
Bill.
is William Hamilton,
William Hamilton.
who is the center, the former NSA for 7 years, the center of that story, who wrote the software, who got ripped off by Ed Meese and Mike Deaver in the Reagan White House. They stole his software. They put a backdoor into his in-slaw promise software and sold it around the world so that the U.S. NSA can go in and spy on people. And then there was another use for it where they went in and they were using it in the banking system that they could spy on people's wire transfers or to overseas Swiss bank accounts and stuff like that, where they could blackmail those people and sometimes even go in and steal the money. That's the promise and-slaw octopus story.
Wow. We'll definitely check that out, everybody. And we really appreciate your time and hope you have a good weekend.
You too, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for coming on. Trip. I love that he did the same thing as last time where he said, I have 20 minutes and then talked to us for an hour.
Oh, I knew it.
He has so much to say.
So much information.
He's been a PI for over 20 years, and he primarily works opposition research, the sexiest type of PI work. Imagine if your job was just to find dirt on politicians and billionaires, and then you did a podcast about it. There's a reason this guy doesn't want to be on camera. He's got to feel insane amounts of paranoia with the people that he writes stories on every single day.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, I honestly, I've been a fan of Opperman since the Palin shit went down, or at least I heard about it. And he is out there. I love him. I absolutely love him.
All right. Boom. All right, guys. Well, that was the interview. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, Sam Castillo, comedy on everything social media. The podcast is Bad News Pod on Instagram and TikTok. You know, if you're not already subscribed to the Creek in the Cave podcast network on YouTube, please do. That way you'll keep up with us.
Give it a like, give it a follow. Check out Opperman Report online as well, and we'll see you on the internet.
Give your plugs, too.
Oh, well, my Instagram's God's Favorite Comedian, and you can find the show's Instagram at Bad News Pod.
You got it. Cool.
Hey, thank you.
What's up,
We'll
Jimmy?
see you next week.